Welcome back to Talkin Badgers, and we're going to be shifting gears today to talk about the Wisconsin men's basketball program, who just held their annual red-white scrimmage on Sunday. And while the season doesn't officially tip off until November 4th, Badger fans got their first look at the new look, roster. Greg Gard's done a lot of shifting around this offseason, and this is the fan base's first look at the team as a whole. The red team absolutely waxed the white team with a 64-43 win, led by John Blackwell at a strong showing, 13 points. Stephen Crowell chipped in 10 points of his own. Kamari McGee had 11, and it was also impressive. But we got plenty to break down, and I want to get into it. But I'd like to start here. So the point guard competition, obviously, this year is a little bit unsettled. Chucky Hepburn leaves during the offseason. Leaves quite a big void there. That's a 3-year starter. Badgers go out, bring in Cam Hunter for Central Arkansas, bring back Kamari McGee, and then also add Daniel Freitag, the highest rated point guard recruit that Greg Gard has landed during his tenure. So there's been a lot of questions about who it's going to be. Is it going to be a point guard by committee? I'll get to that later. Or is Cam Hunter who is brought in, has a background with some scoring ability? Is he going to step up and take the role? Is it Daniel Freitag who's going to walk in like Chucky Hepburn did and take it as a true freshman? Well, earlier last week, Greg Gard, told reporters that Kamari McGee has been the most consistent and the most impressive player of the bunch to this point. And during the red-white scrimmage, I would say he did absolutely nothing to, change anyone's opinion of that. Kamari McGee played with great pace. I thought he was able to pick his spots, penetrate, and get into the lane pretty effectively, finished really well around the rim. More than anything, this just looked like a guy who was the most comfortable of the trio. Notably, he was on the red team that won. I thought that maybe that was perhaps intentional, that Kamari McGee was split up from Daniel Freitag and Cam Hunter, who were on the other team. But Kamari finished with 11 points. I thought he was pretty efficient from the floor. He had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, more importantly, perhaps no turnovers. He made sure that the ball touched the post. And going back to local media day, that's something that Greg Gard was pretty damn adamant needed to happen. I paraphrasing, but Gard made it pretty clear that there shouldn't be 3 consecutive possessions go by without Stephen Crowell, getting the ball down low. And I thought that Kamari made sure that the ball did get down there. I think that ultimately this is somebody that Gard trusts. He's spoken pretty glowingly about him in the way that he's gone about his business this offseason, how vocal he's been as a leader on a team that, lost a little bit of its leadership. So I thought that was all pretty notable. If I was a betting man right now, I would say that Kamari McGee is going to be your opening night starter. With that being said, I don't think this is going to be your traditional, starting point guard getting 30-plus minutes a game because, like mentioned before, we do have Cam Hunter, we do have Daniel Freitag. I feel pretty confident in saying that there's going to be a combination of all 3 of them seeing minutes. I don't know exactly what that looks like. This team has the ability to go small, play 2 point guards. This team also has the ability to go pretty big. We'll get to that later. But the 2 of them are going to play in some capacity. And I think maybe the interesting thing is it's almost going to be like a running back by committee approach in a way that they all offer something really different. Cam Hunter did start for the white team. He had 4 points on 2 of 4 shooting, 5 rebounds. He did turn the ball over once and had a nice block on Kamari in 29 minutes. Didn't exactly pop, but one thing that did stand out was his physicality. Is he jumping up levels? Absolutely. But this guy is built kind of like a running back. I mean, he's nearly 220 pounds. So he's somebody who's going to be able to use that physicality to his advantage, get into the lane and be physical, perhaps be used on post-ups. I think Cam Hunter is going to be a really nice piece for this team and somebody that is fairly dependable. Daniel Freitag, obviously, he's somebody who everybody is very excited about, and for good reason. Daniel Freitag had 9 points in this game on 4 of 7 shooting. I thought that he had a couple of wow moments where he was just really, really explosive. You can see the electricity in his game. Got to the rim pretty easily a handful of times. Maybe didn't finish on every single opportunity he had, but all of the tools are there for him to be a special player. I don't think it's important that he, starts from the jump. I think that there's a pretty meaningful role available for him no matter what happens. So once the game starts to slow down for him a little bit, I think there's something really special there. So 3 really capable point guards going into the season. I think they're all going to play. Minutes distribution, that's the part that's really up in the air to me, and will be really interesting as we kind of turn the page and head towards the exhibition. Another thing that I wanted to touch on coming out of that game is maybe the front court depth as a whole. Stephen Crowell, I thought looked tremendous, but he should look tremendous. He's not going against any all Big Ten caliber competition. I thought he looked really comfortable in the post, a little bit more fluid perhaps. His passing ability was on full display. He just did a lot of really nice things. He looked very comfortable and confident out there. Threw a couple of them down, things you love to see from Big Steve. 10 points on 5 of 9 shooting, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. But it wasn't just Steve's performance in particular I was impressed with. I would kind of expect that against, his teammates. I think coming out of it, I feel, and a combination of watching a couple of practices so far, is that there are options behind Steve this season that I don't know that we've had, maybe since the season that Chris Vogt exhausted his eligibility. I think that Greg Gard's been kind of chasing that Vogt-like replacement really since then, and maybe to his detriment has fallen short. You'll remember in years past, obviously Carter Gilmore had to kind of act as our preferred backup at the 5 spot. The year that we missed the tournament. Last season, Nolan Winter, who showed a lot of flashes, and we'll touch on him in a moment. He went out there and he battled. He showed a lot of nice things as a freshman, but gave up a lot of height, weight to Big Ten big men. This season, I think that Wisconsin's got some real options. The interesting thing is that Gard has kind of noted that Nolan Winter probably the favorite to start next to Stephen Crowell. Admittedly, I don't think I saw that coming. I think my expectation was that it would be Xavier Amos due to fit, but Nolan Winter has added some weight. Another guy who looks a little bit more comfortable. Gard's made it pretty clear he's been a rebounding machine. He's got nice touch on his jumper. A lot of things. Nolan Winter's got tremendous upside. So the fact that he's kind of gone out and taken this role and this job, perhaps, rather than anyone else losing it, really, I think is a really positive development. But then where does that leave the rest of the front court rotation? Xavier Amos, I think he's going to still play a pretty substantial role. Kind of got some Aleem Ford to his game. He's that stretch 4 with that ability to potentially play out on the wing. I don't know how much I see him playing at the 3, but he has that ability, to put the ball on the deck. I think that's really valuable. Stretch the floor. He's a really accomplished shooter. He's probably going to be your first big man off the bench, and that then slides over, Winter or whomever over to the 5. So I think in some capacity, the 2 of them are going to have to account for some of Steve's minutes at the 5. Not a big surprise. But the one question mark, that me and my colleague Kedrick Stumbris had, and we kind of marveled at a little bit at local media day, was just, Greg Gard and this staff wants true freshman Ricardo Greppi they see him and they want him to be a guy who can step in and play legitimate backup minutes for Steve at the 5. They want Steve to be dominant and consistently dominant, and with that is going to require him being able to get more consistent breathers and having viable options to step in. Ricardo Greppi at the practice I was at did not. He still was coming along as far as conditioning, and I'm not saying he's there yet, but he did a couple really nice things during Sunday's scrimmage that really stood out to me. Just 2 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and a pair of blocks. But Ricardo Greppi, when we had kind of asked him about like, well, what dynamic do you bring to this team that's a little bit different, or where do you kind of think that your game stands out in comparison to the guys on the roster? And it didn't take very long for him to respond and just say that he thinks it's his passing, his court vision. That he just kind of comes from playing a little bit different style of basketball, and he thinks that his low post vision and ability to pass and create for his teammates is going to be something. And he had a couple of wow passes during that scrimmage. I definitely see what he was talking about. And let's just be clear, from a physical standpoint, he's ready to step in and be on a court in a meaningful game. He's 6'10", he's 225. Physically, I'm not concerned about him stepping out there. Kedrick and I had spoken to Badger assistant Kirk Penny, and just maybe touched on the fact that it looked like he had a little bit of range enough to step out and maybe hit down a mid-range shot. And Kirk was pretty quick to let us know that that's not what we brought him here for. He's basically here to be a big-bodied 5 who can roll the basket and just be that physical presence behind Steve. I think it's pretty clear that they want him to be. They want him to play meaningful minutes. And when I say meaningful, I guess they want him to play consistent minutes behind Steve. And I think I've settled on that maybe looking like, 4 to 6 minutes a game. I think he's capable of going out there, holding his own defensively. He won't give up anything rebounding wise, perhaps be able to facilitate a little bit, make up for what he doesn't maybe currently have offensively. I think they've got something there. I think that was a nice late addition by this staff, given what happened, with Vukovic, who ended up at Oklahoma State. Just a nice pivot. In years past, they have not been able to address this position despite their best efforts in the transfer portal, and I think that they do deserve credit for pivoting late. This was late in the summer that they found out that Vukovic wasn't going to qualify, to come to the University of Wisconsin effectively. And they pivoted, went and got Ricardo Greppi. I think he's going to see minutes. I don't think he's someone that you're going to want to count on for a lot more than that. He's still got a long way to go, but nice pickup, somebody who I think can give you minutes, and that's important. So this is a roster right now that I feel like has better playable depth, because I think there's a difference between depth and playable depth. Carter Gilmore has gone out there in the past and given you depth when you needed it. Look no further than, the Big Ten tournament last season when, they were in terrible foul trouble and he came in and held his own. He's a good low post defender against Zach Edey and did enough, and they ended up winning that game. That's not someone you want to count on every single game. And I think kind of between the jump that Nolan Winter has, made, which I'm telling you he has made, he's added weight. The addition of Xavier Amos, who does some nice things, gives you a little bit more flexibility there, and is also going to require halfway decent minutes. And then having Ricardo Greppi, I think you've got some options that will allow you to play more effectively to what it is that you're playing against. I think this team's got enough versatility to play big or small. I don't know how much it'll happen, but guards also mentioned John Tonje as a possibility at the 4 if they want to go small, and I think that's interesting too because he's got a really physically built. My third thought coming out of the red-white scrimmage, and really just kind of a thought in general that carried since Greg Gard made it abundantly clear to us on Local Media Day that it's the case, but John Blackwell is his team's best player. They're absolutely going to be a balanced team. This is Wisconsin. This offense is still going to have different guys beat you in different ways. And he was very careful with his words on that particular day talking about John Blackwell, but he wanted us to know that John Blackwell came back this summer with a mindset change that kind of was reminiscent of the one that Johnny Davis came back with. Now, he was careful with his words because he wanted us to know, I'm not saying he's going to be Johnny Davis. I'm not saying he's going to be an NBA lottery pick. None of that. But he came back with a mindset that he is the best player, and he has taken that step. And it's really clear how comfortable he just is in this system and with this team overall. This is John Blackwell's team. This is who they're going to lean on as their go-to guy when they need a bucket late in the games. John Blackwell just looks calm, cool, collected. And coming off an all Big Ten freshman season, I don't think this is a major surprise for anybody, but I thought he's a lethal three-point shooter. We know this. Converted at an incredibly high clip last season. But I thought that he was just, when a player is really good, they often make the game look much easier than it is. And I thought John Blackwell kind of did that on Sunday. He just was able to get to his spots on the floor pretty easily. Was able to break people down. I thought he got to the bucket pretty well. He's really strong for his size. Just so much to like about John Blackwell, coming out of this game. He scores 13 points, leads all scorers. And quite frankly, it felt like the game as a whole came very easy to him. I think he could have pretty comfortably scored more if that's what he wanted. He still was able to facilitate for others. He's somebody who, given the fact that he played point guard coming out of high school, he's got that versatility. I think that will allow some flexibility with how guard wants to roll out lineups in certain situations. If they want to go bigger, he's capable of bringing the ball up the floor. But keep this one short and sweet. I think John Blackwell is a guy who's going to lead this team in scoring. I think that he, without batting an eyelash, can go for 14 plus a night. I think he's going to be the guy, him and Steve for the most part. I think that Wisconsin absolutely needed this kind of a leap from a John Blackwell or somebody, but John Blackwell is the candidate that I think you're most excited about, given he's only a sophomore. But they're going to need someone. This team doesn't have maybe the high-end talent that it's had in past years, but I do think that the floor of this roster is higher than it's been. I think that the depth is far more legit. A lot more guys that you're comfortable with playing, not just having to play. But you also need somebody who is going to be a difference maker, more often than not. And John Blackwell is a really consistent basketball player. He hardly hit what you'd want to call a freshman wall last year. So I thought that was pretty big. A couple closing thoughts here to keep it short and sweet. I think kind of the hype around Jack Janicki, there's something to it. There's a lot of guys vying for spots in the rotation right now. So it's hard to see maybe where the minutes come from, especially when you have, other wings like John Blackwell, Klesmit, John Tanjay. These are guys that are going to play heavy minutes. You also have two other point guards behind McGee right now who are going to factor into this rotation. And so where the minutes come from, I don't know. But in non-conference, Jack Janicki might be worth some sort of a look. He looks like somebody right now that could give you solid minutes on the wing. Another really good shooter. He's athletic. This kid's got burst. He's very quick. Again, I'm not saying that this is someone who's going to step in and be maybe a regular piece, but if he's someone who's kind of that next man outside of the regular rotation, I think you feel really good about that. Jack Janicki did some really nice things on Sunday. Think there's something there. Still a walk-on, so I think that's worth noting. Nice addition there regardless. Just another kind of guy who raises the floor of the competition. I don't know that we're going to see guys so much like Marcus Ilver, Carter Gilmore this season as often. I just think there are better options right now than them, but these are guys who have played a handful of minutes in the past, so you could do a lot worse than having some upperclassmen. Carter Gilmore has also spent a little bit of time at the 3 so far this offseason, so you have some experienced options that could step in a pinch. I think that is also important. Chris Hodges is someone who I don't think will be an option in this front court rotation. Max Klesmit, somebody I haven't really talked about, but I'm not at all concerned about Max Klesmit. I think we all know what he is at this point. I think one thing that maybe with this roster construct I'd love to see, and maybe we saw a little bit of on Sunday, is that perhaps the volume goes up. This is a career 38% three-point shooter. I think he's someone who we've all seen at times. He has that microwave scoring ability. Wouldn't mind seeing, the 3-point volume go up from him. This offense under Guard and Penny has taken a huge step, finished 17th in adjusted offensive efficiency a year ago. They've been in the lab cooking. They recruited to it. I think he's someone I'd like to see that volume go up. I think he's a great candidate. John Tonje, I don't think in particular on Sunday did anything, that really jumped off the page, but he still had a fairly nice game. He's just someone I think is going to be a really nice asset. He is not going to look out of place in the Big Ten. He scored 10 points very quietly on Sunday. A nice pickup by the staff as well. Someone who's going to warrant significant minutes on this roster. I don't know what that looks like, but north of 20, I'd feel pretty comfortable saying. Jack Robinson, don't envision him playing this season, but he had a couple moments as a 3-point shooter in transition where just caught it out on the wing, stepped into it, no hesitation, knocked him down. I think he's maybe a little further along than they were anticipating, which is, incredible because I think this kid's just got Wisconsin written all over him. Lakeville North, bit aside, like he's someone who has potential to be a nice player for Wisconsin down the line. I think that's kind of all I've really got coming out of the red-white scrimmage. They have their season or their exhibition here coming up before they open up against Holy Cross on November 4th. Not going to take too much away yet. I think the exhibition's usually been pretty telling in terms of what the initial rotation is going to look like. So I think that'll be really interesting to see specifically who rolls out in the starting five. Who the first couple people off the bench are, what that looks like. I'm going to go on record right now. I think this is an NCAA tournament team. I know there are some people that are pretty down, and I get it. You lost Chucky Hepburn, 3-year starter. You lost AJ Storr, second team All Big Ten guy. Connor Sejan, who, maybe wasn't a good enough defender to see minutes on the roster we currently had, but I don't want to minimize the impact he was capable of having. But I think the staff rebounded. They replaced him with some quality players. The incoming freshmen looked pretty solid. I think they really have a couple of nice pieces there. The transfers are going to make an impact. This is a deeper roster. How they gel is still going to be the biggest piece because you lose a lot of that chemistry factor, and that's really important for Wisconsin, and it has been in many seasons. So how quickly that all meshes and comes together and they can settle into a rotation, I think will decide ultimately the ceiling of this team. But I would currently take them to finish above, the 12th place finish that they were projected in the preseason. I think that's all I got for you here today on this solo episode of Talkin Badgers. I want to thank you guys for making Talkin Badgers a part of your week. And I'm sure the next time we get back together, I'll have the boys back with me. So catch you then, and Wisconsin.